Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at a topic that combines emotions and logic: compensation.
When it comes to compensation, everyone has their own set ideas, and the question of how much always kindles intense feelings, including jealousy, indignation, and admiration, which in turn lead to a wide range of interpretations, opinions, and comments.
We're outraged about some people's compensation packages. We love comparing professional athletes' salaries to the selflessness of volunteers. We bite when the media polemicize financial revelations, perfectly willing to compare apples to oranges.
To sum things up, compensation is always a hot topic for debate, and companies are no exception to the rule. It's a human trait. That said, within a company, compensation is regulated by a policy which can be a real asset if people understand it. So, the importance of a clear compensation policy. What's the story?
Extrinsic financial rewards are, of course, an important motivational factor with an impact on behavior.
Compensation is a management driver, but it's one which everyone interprets in their own way if it doesn't come with an explanation. Employees will, wrongly or rightly, interpret the messages conveyed by different compensation practices and decisions.
You can't keep people from interpreting situations, it's only natural. They'll have legitimate questions, of course, and the manager's role is to answer them, to explain their decisions. But managers need support to do that.
Right, it is a manager's responsibility, but it's first and foremost the company's responsibility.
A compensation policy in which the amount arrives without any instructions or explanations will be unable to play its role as a driver. Without unifying structure, it's a pure waste of time.
It's the company's responsibility to take a close look at the messages conveyed by its compensation policy.
For example, when the time between the performance that elicits a reward and its implementation is too long, the beneficiary will have a hard time linking the two together.
This subjectivity, caused by the dilution of the message over time, often leads employees to perceive positive decisions as their due and negative decisions as unfair.
Let's look, for example, at how an employee might perceive the message sent by stock options. They might assume there's no risk since they're options and not shares.
Maybe some of them will think that when you have important responsibilities, you deserve a high level of compensation proportional to the increase in value of the shared asset they are responsible for. And yet, at the same time, the technical realities mean that you can't lose money even when the value of the shared asset decreases.
Because it involves strong emotions and is highly subjective, compensation cannot be managed without considering the importance of the messages it conveys.
In addition to the importance of equity and competitiveness from a purely financial perspective, it's crucial to look at compensation from a managerial point of view. It is imperative to ensure consistency between the messages conveyed by compensation and the values the company wants to promote.
You have to explain the reasons behind the compensation policy, as well as the mechanisms that structure it, and support managers to help them learn how to explain it as well. Because, at some point, they'll need to explain individual decisions. And the better equipped they are, the more likely employees are to understand.
To recap, since compensation necessarily conveys a message which will be interpreted by employees, companies have to explain their compensation policy to ensure its intentions and the rules that express it are clear to all. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short. Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.